Welcome to the Let Go and Be Free podcast, a podcast for those who grew up in an alcoholic or dysfunctional family. I'm your host, Ron Vital, author of the Let Go and Be Free 100 Daily Reflections for Adult Children of Alcoholics series. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to visit letgoandbefree.com. And with that, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I wanted to take a little bit of a different route. We've gone through the various 12 steps. We've talked about, ways of dealing with conflict. We've gone through a lot of, breakdown in the various episodes on how to move forward. But I want to talk about a real, life situation that happens to all of us when we go against that, hit a wall and you just want to give up. When you're tired, you're frustrated, you're like, this change isn't happening fast enough. I don't understand why, I don't feel better. I'm trying to learn all these things. I feel overwhelmed, etc. So, a lot of people, in life focus on New Year's resolutions. January 1st, I'm gonna, exercise. I'm gonna go on a diet. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to do all these amazing things. And typically, 4 to 6 weeks in, all those resolutions have been thrown by the wayside. Similar behavior is shown by, people that go on a diet and they go on a diet for a certain amount of time, lose X amount of weight. And then as soon as they stop the diet, all the weight comes back and sometimes more. And there have been studies that show that if you study the behavior of individuals that are on diets, as soon as they, get off of that diet, their old behavior patterns return and eating, etc. So, I know friends and coworkers over the years who have done the, Weight Watchers program and have had great success on that type of thing. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that I equate the mental change of learning healthy behavioral responses to conflict and dealing with, how to be in a relationship, taking care of yourself, self-care, etc. with some of these, fads that go through, like do this, whatever, liquid diet, do this, do that. What I'm espousing here is that there are changes that will need to take place over the course of your lifetime, not in the course of a week. And you're going to read a book and then you're just magically going to, subsume all this great knowledge and all the problems that you've ever had in life will be solved. That's not how this works. I wish there could be an easy answer to that, but I think that's why people hit that wall and they want to give up, because they're trying. They get frustrated. They're like, I don't understand, especially if no one ever modeled good behavior for you, or no one ever really explained to you what healthy behavior is. And I think that makes things even, more complicated, because if you're going into a situation and you're trying to figure out, like, hey, I'm looking at my past and I'm seeing how my parents, modeled behavior of dealing with conflict or dealing with finances or dealing with addiction within, a family unit. And you probably saw lots of unhealthy behaviors, codependency. You may have seen lots of anger and fighting and arguing and all kinds of things. And if you've come from that and you acknowledge, hey, this is where I came from, and you're trying to learn new things, new skills, and take care of yourself, that's not an easy process to go through. It's not impossible, but I understand if you get to that point of, giving up, where you get to a point and you're like, this is just too hard for me. I just want to give up. I don't understand how to do all this. It's too much for me. And I would ask that when you get to that point, you take a break, you process what you're feeling, you either write about it, talk to trusted friends about it. If you're going to therapy, talk to your therapist about it. And then think through, after you've had some time to kind of sleep on it, to come back and be like, well, these are the skills that I need to learn. I am worth investing in. I am going to keep moving forward. And it's a different way of looking at things, of saying it's okay to want to give up, and you're tired of trying, learning new skills. You're tired of, going to therapy, or you're tired of going to adult children of alcoholic meetings and talking about your feelings or writing about them. You could just be tired and you're just done with it all. I understand that. And I obviously can't tell you what's good for you. I can only share with you, my own experiences, that when I hit a wall like that, what I find to be really helpful is, one, to admit it. Say I really feel like just, giving up. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. But then I build in that time to think through and process what I'm thinking and feeling, instead of just like, well, I'm going to throw everything to the wind. And instead of looking things in a all or nothing, black or white circumstance, looking at it as gradations, like, well, if I don't do anything today, and let's say, I'm thinking of an example, uh, you have an argument with, let's say, your mother who has addiction issues, and you flip out, you get angry, and you start yelling and screaming, and you're very embarrassed, and it's just a mess. In your brain, that guilt, that you might be feeling of, oh, I was trying to learn all these healthy communication styles. I've been going to therapy, I've been writing, but I fell right back into the trap, and I just, went through and did all the same old behaviors that I typically do. I get triggered. She said something, it really got me angry, and then I went off the handle, and now I feel like an idiot, and etc. And that pattern gets repeated. What I'm saying to you is, when something like that happens, that's a good opportunity to take that pause, to reflect, and realize not everything that you've learned has gone out the window. It's not as though you start at like ground zero and have to start everything all over again. It's not like there's like a ledger and someone's keeping count. It's, are you going to move forward and learn these new skills, or are you not? And it's going to take time, and you're going to fall, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're probably not going to understand certain things, or you might argue with certain things that you're learning, or you just might be done with it, and you might be thinking, well, it's not fair, to me, because I see all these other people that grew up in happy families, and they don't have to deal with these kind of issues. I'm tired of dealing with these things myself. I'm going to just move on and do my own thing, and etc. That type of thinking might feel good in the moment, but I think it is also important to realize that, one, we never quite know what's going on behind the scenes in other families. People might appear to be all doing fine, but there could be all kinds of problems going in that, within the family that you're not aware of. So, one, I try not to compare myself to others, because when you do that comparison, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not, don't have enough money enough, whatever. When you do those comparisons, it's really only kind of putting your own self down. And I think in today's day and age, it's even more complicated, because, even if you're on some of the older social media platforms like Facebook, what do people post? They post pictures of like happy family times. They're whatever, traveling somewhere and having a great time skiing or whatever, and you're like looking at a pile of bills, and you're frustrated, like, well, why can't I have that life? Remember, you're seeing a curated life from other people on social media. You're seeing what they want you to see. You're not seeing the full 360 experience of like whatever is going on in that person's life. And having those comparisons of like, well, why can't I do this, or why can't I do that? You don't know. Maybe they're majorly in debt and they went on this trip, and that's going to put whatever at risk for their mortgage or something. You just don't know. And if you compare yourself to others all the time, it's just, you're never going to be able to get over the sense of having comfort and love for yourself. And what I'm saying here is, wanting to give up, hitting an obstacle, is normal. And learning what you want to do to move forward is a difficult process, because you might say, well, the 12 steps aren't working for me. Okay, maybe they aren't. But then what is working for you? You know, is it going to therapy? Is it the ACOA meetings? Is it journal writing? Is it book reading? Is it what is it? Again, it's not an all or nothing. It's not like you have to do these three things and then, everything's going to be fine. What I'm saying here is embracing the challenge and the journey, in my opinion, is more important than having a prescribed, by day 32, you're going to have all your problems solved. That, unfortunately, is not how life works. That is extremely frustrating. I understand that. Yet, how do you balance the frustration and wanting to give up with also not wanting to stay where you are? I remember hearing someone say once, people don't change until they're ready to change. And the analogy was like, people will keep sitting on nails and even, until it, gives them pain, and they won't stop doing that until the pain becomes too great. And then they decide that they need to move on and they need to not do that anymore. That might be different for you than it was for me, than it is for your neighbor, than it is for your spouse, etc. No one can know that answer on what makes change stick and what makes you tick and move forward and learn healthier ways of living. And I want to be clear, when I'm saying healthier ways of living, it's a holistic thing. It's not just simply, well, I grew up, in a dysfunctional family and there was alcoholism and there was maybe physical abuse and drugs, whatever it was. You obviously want to grow up now moving forward with your own family and not have some of those skeletons, that baggage, replicate themselves in your current, new family, or even within yourself. If you're not in a relationship with someone, if you don't have kids, you look at your past and say, so and so, a parent, was dealing with drugs or alcohol, and you see that and you say, well, I don't want that to happen to me, or I don't want to be in a relationship with someone where that happens. These are things that you need to be able to decide on your own and figure out your own boundaries and how to move forward. So now you're at a point where you have some knowledge. If you've listened to some of the podcasts, especially through the 12-step ones. And if you haven't, I'd recommend that you go through those 12 episodes, because I think there's a lot to learn there. But if you're at a point now where, you've started to go through the 12 steps, you've started to, look at your life to see where you can make some changes, it can seem overwhelming. Change can be difficult. It's, you may have grown up in a family where, you weren't eating healthy because either there wasn't money to do so, or your parents were so involved with the alcoholism or addiction that it was kind of like whatever, takeout or, McDonald's meals for the kids. And that's what you grew up with. And so you might want to start eating healthier. You might want to start exercising, but then you're like, well, where do I go? How do I do this? How do I make all these changes that I want to do? How do I learn all these new skills, these new communication tools, and make all these other changes? It's overwhelming. I want to give up. I think that is an extremely normal response to something that seems impossible to overcome. And I think what helps me, so I know this helps me, and what I hope it will be helpful for you, is to look at things and break things apart into smaller pieces. So, instead of saying, well, starting tomorrow, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to exercise 5 times a week, and I'm going to read the 12 steps, and I'm going to go to therapy. You got a list of like 10 things that you're going to do. And by day 4, you're burned out and you're like, I can't do this anymore. I think what I have found for my own life is small changes over time are more beneficial because I don't feel as though I'm taking on too much at the same time, that I'm spacing out what I'm learning. Read a book here, go to therapy, go to ACOA meetings. Over the course of time, over the course of years, change does happen in a positive way. And I know that if you are hurting and you are in a difficult spot now, hearing somebody say, hearing me say, like, oh, it's going to take you years, I'm just sharing my experience. I can't say what's going to be helpful for you. But what I do think is helpful is there are some key tools that I have that will help me when I'm going through difficult times. I've got my affirmations, I've got my, 12 steps. I've been to therapy multiple times in the past. I've got friends that I can trust. I have a network, and I then have skills and tools in my, kit, virtual kit, that way if I hit a problem, in life, which we all do, could be financial, it could be physical. I was sick recently, trying to come back from that, and overcoming that is not an easy thing. So depending on what the problem is, depending on what you're trying to overcome, what are the tools that are helpful for you? What is something that's going to help you to change or feel better? And that's not something that, you know, I can answer for me. And what I mean by that is, you know, you may not like writing. I love it. But I find the journal writing to be really helpful. Daily pages, to do writing as much as I can, because then I can process what I'm feeling, put it into words, and then I can process those emotions in a healthy way instead of, let's say, taking things out on somebody else. As an example, what works for you and what doesn't. And so, for me, I know what those skills are, and I know what those tools are for me. When I hit this problem of I'm feeling down and out, I'm tired, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I know that writing will help me, talking to trusted, people, friends, family, loved ones, etc. That helps me. And then I also find that music is also a big help for me. That I can listen to music and that uplifts me. Walking, exercise, also is a common thing that I can do on a regular basis that will also help me out. But I can't say what's going to work for you. But I can understand if you've hit a wall and you feel like giving up because you're just tired and you're like, I don't think any of this is working for me. I'm going to stop listening to the podcast. I don't want to try the 12 steps. I'm just done. I'm just going to crawl back into, my hole and forget about the world for a while. Hey, maybe that's what you need to do. And then, when you put your head back up, you might have a different perspective and say, these certain things did help or not. The good news is these podcasts, are available. You can listen to them and you can check them out. You could revisit them and listen. Or some of the skills, again, basic boundary setting skills. Ask yourself the question, is this healthy for me? Is this true? Building up that internal monologue within your head so you can figure out whatever circumstance you're up against. Your boss comes to you and says you have to work this weekend, but you already have plans, to do something with your family. What do you say? How do you handle that? If you grew up in a dysfunctional family, you might be a people pleaser and you might not be able to easily say, no, thank you, I can't do that because I already have plans. Or it might be more complicated. You might be afraid if you say no, you might lose your job. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to process that? How are you going to solve that problem in a healthy way instead of some of the, coping mechanisms you may have learned growing up in a dysfunctional family, denial or repressing your feelings through food or sex or ignoring things or lashing out, etc. There are some of the common ones that, people do. So what What are you doing? How are you going to move forward? When you hit that wall and you get tired and you say, I just, I give up. I have nothing left in me today. I'm done. Where are you going to go from that in the days after that? What are you going to choose to do? That is not an easy answer. Um, what I'm saying is looking at things from a different point of view and not an all or nothing is helpful to break apart living life on a day-to-day basis. That's another thing that I personally like with the 12 steps and the 12-step program is often you're focusing on a day at a time. Sometimes you'll hear people say focus on a minute at a time, a second at a time. You deal with the present. You're not dealing with what's going to happen 5 weeks from now, or if I do this, what's going to happen, and then you start worrying and forecasting out, catastrophizing like the future. Trust me, that's what I do. I worry, because in the past when I was a kid, when I worried, it allowed me to think through all the scenarios to prepare for the worst. When the worst would happen, I'd be like, I already know how I'm going to deal with this. I'm fine. Everything's great. And maybe in one way, trying to see the silver lining in this, um, maybe that's why I'm a fiction writer, because I can think through so many different scenarios with characters and and events and situations and run through those scenarios and like what happens here, there, everywhere. Like I'm good at that. I really enjoy that creative process. But in my adult life, in moving forward, I can't always be thinking and worrying about what about X, Y, or Z, or I'm going to miss the now, you know? And I think that's something to think about in a way that maybe we don't do enough of. None of us know how long we're going to be here, on this earth. We really don't. So what are you going to do with your time? Are you going to waste it? Are we going to worry every day? Or are we going to take time, even if it's just a little bit of time each day, to enjoy? What do you like? Do you want to sit on a bench and feed the pigeons? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go out with a friend? Do you want to dance and listen to some music? What makes you thrive? What is that? Find that joy, embrace it, and move forward with it. And so, as I always say, like in my head, as long as I'm not hurting somebody else or hurting myself, that's where, whatever it is, something stupid for me, I really like cleaning. I feel like if there's chaos in my life and I'm put some music on and I could do some cleaning, I like that. It brings me joy. That's me. You might hate it. That's fine. That's you. So when you come against that adversity, in life, and then you hit that wall and you're tired and you do want to give up, what are the skills that you have? What are the tools that you have to help you get forward? And I find, especially if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I'm not eating right, if I'm not exercising, if I'm majorly stressed, I can't remember all these things. It's almost like I black out. Like I just don't have that mental capacity to be like, oh, today, here's all these tools I have. Here's all these things that I've learned. Like that's just not how my brain works. But I do have things written down. I have things like at my desk where if I'm going through a difficult time, I can read a little reminder of something that would be like, hey, do these things. You might have something like a thing about serenity prayer on your desk, or the 12 steps, or something like asking yourself the question like, is this true? Is this healthy for me? Like very simple reminders that you could use as you're going through the course of like each day. And I think that that could be, an easy thing to do. I'm not saying it's going to solve all your problems. I'm not saying that, um, you know, that is the be all and end all. But what I am saying is making sure that you've got a lifeline and you've got a network, like a net under you is critical. It takes work to build that up, and some of it might not even seem like it's a net, but if you are focusing on your own self-confidence and self-worth instead of looking for that, acceptance from other people, that may have been what you did when you were young and you were trying to get by and just trying to survive in a dysfunctional family, but that's not going to help you in today's day and age in your adult life. So the more that you can focus on what skills are helpful for you, even if you do write them down, even if you have like a secret journal somewhere and you write these down, these like 5 things, you like the garden, you like to go for a walk, tell yourself, hey, if you're feeling down, it's okay. Give yourself the space to relax and then come back, like messages to yourself, your past self to your present self. Um, I find that to be really helpful to go back and, dig up an old, journal and read through something that I wrote like a year ago or 10 years ago. And you look and you're like, wow, I can't imagine I was thinking that or I was feeling that. So much has changed. And I think that's helpful so that you could see a progression over time. Change can take time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a miracle cure. It's not a quick fix diet. It's learning skills, practicing how to communicate in a healthy way and take care of yourself, build boundaries, and um, be true to yourself as you move through in life. That is not easy to do day after day, year after year. There are times when you're going to be tired and you hit a wall and there's problems that come up. And what I'm saying to you is, if now is a good time in your life, thinking and just enumerating and writing down, what those skills are, and having little things that could help you, little notes, a little bit of guidebooks of, having a picture that has the Serenity Prayer somewhere on your, fridge or in your room, on your bureau, or wherever, that could be helpful for you. There are these little cues that will help you to be able to move forward in a way that will be helpful. So I I wanted to focus on something different this week, and something, that I think all of us have gone through at some point when we hit a wall and we deal with, adversity and problems. And I'm hoping that asking yourself some of these questions and thinking through and being like, it's okay to feel this way, giving yourself some space to figure out what you want to do next, and then you decide what's going to work for you. Again, is this healthy for me? Is this true? I can't answer that. Only you can. So again, thank you for listening to this podcast. I appreciate it. If you'd like to support me, you can subscribe at ronvital.substack.com. You can find more about the Let Go and Be Free book series at letgoandbefree.com, or you could just look me up, Ron Vital, on Amazon, all the other publishing platforms. You can find the Let Go and Be Free 4-volume books that are all available in ebook, or they are available in print form, and they're also available on Google Play as audiobooks. So again, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. And as always, be well.